The storm never came. Above the Kazakuten, the clouds gathered in silence. But the skies did not open. No thunder broke, no wind howled, only stillness. The palace walls shimmered under the weight of divine tension. But inside the sacred chamber of birth, the only sound was breath. A single cry had not yet been heard. She knelt on the lacquered floor, slick with warmth and blood. Her robes were soaked from waist to hem, tangled in the traces of labor. But her eyes did not blink. Crimson black, sharp as a blade's edge. They remained locked on the newborn in her arms. He did not wail. He did not move, but he was breathing. And his wings had unfurled, one white as bleached moonstone, the other darker than obsidian, both small, soft, imperfect, but whole. Her lips trembled. "Thank you," she whispered, "for letting me see you." The stillness in that room wasn't fear, it was awe. He had not come into the world crying, he had come watching. As if he had already lived before. "Not just light," she murmured, "not just shadow. You were born with both." She wrapped him closer and let him rest against the rhythm of her heartbeat. A mortal rhythm, yes, but one that had carried a god's heir for 9 moons. "Your name is Kagetsu." She could not speak the name, but the word lingered in her throat like a vow. She smiled. Tears wet her cheeks. Her voice did not falter. "My child." The news never left the palace, not at first. Only a few chosen figures stood in the shadows of the sacred hall. A pair of Mikos, white-robed and breathless, a silent healer, and the attendant who had been chosen long before the child was ever born. She was only 6. The girl stood in the inner corridor, hands folded in prayer that no one had taught her, eyes wide but unafraid. She had pale hair, soft, long, and brushed back. Her robes were clean. Her fingers were still. One of the attending healers leaned closer to the elder Miko beside him. "Her name?" he asked softly. The Miko answered in a whisper, "Arimi from Amoshiro." He raised a brow, a tenshi. The Miko gave a slow nod. She does not speak often, but the empress requested silence. When Tsukihi emerged, carrying the child, wrapped in twin layers of sun gold and night silk, she stopped before the girl. Arimi bowed so deeply. Tsukihi knelt. Their eyes met. "This is yours to protect, not with power, not with voice, but with presence." Arimi nodded. She did not speak. She would not need to. The days that followed were quiet. No visitors came. No cries rang out through the halls. The child did not speak, and yet, air around him shimmered like song. At times, it was difficult to tell if he was awake or dreaming. He moved so gently, and his gaze passed through people, as though he were watching something far beyond them. Arimi never left his side. She did not hum, or whisper, or speak his name, but she washed his face each morning with rose water, wrapped him in clean robes at dusk, and lit a fresh stick of incense before the western window, where the light of the moon poured in. Kogetsu seemed to breathe in rhythm with her. One day, Tsukihi came to observe them both. She stood behind the screen and watched the way Arime folded the cloth, how she bowed after placing it beside him. The girl moved with reverence. Later that evening, the empress summoned her. Arimi came barefoot. Tsukihi stood in the center of a small chamber. The walls were shaped like wings, one white stone, one black. Between them stood a single scroll. Tsukihi pointed to the floor. Arimi knelt. "Have you spoken to him yet?" Arimi shook her head. "Do you want to?" There was a pause. Then, "Not yet." Tsukihi stepped closer. "Good, he hears things even when no one speaks. He always will." A breath passed between them. "You are not here to teach him. You are here to show him that he is not alone." Arimi nodded once, then twice, once for herself, once for him, and Tsukihi turned away. The child did not ask for a brush. He did not ask for parchment. But one day he stepped alone into the Tsukinoma, the hall of sun and moon. The servants had prepared it for the empress's calligraphy ritual later that evening. No one had told him to enter, and yet there he was, Tsukika arrived quietly, not intending to interrupt. She stood beyond the curtain of reeds and watched. Kagetsu sat in perfect stillness, legs folded beneath him, back straight. The sleeves of his robes had slipped from his wrists. In front of him, a scroll, blank beside it, ink untouched. He dipped the brush and began to write. One character, bold, sharp, flowing as if it had always been inside him, fate. Another delicate, soft, rising like a prayer, grace. He did not look up. He did not notice her, but Tsukika stood there long after he had finished. The scent of ink filled the chamber. The scroll remained open, the kanji still wet. The brush lay across the stone. She stepped forward and knelt beside him. Kogetsu turned his eyes to hers. "Did someone teach you those?" He shook his head. "Do you know what they mean?" He was silent, so she answered for him. "Fate and grace." Kagetsu blinked, then looked down at his hands. Tsukika said nothing more, but within her chest, something quiet and terrifying took root. A certainty that could not be explained. This child was not waiting for his future, he was writing it. That night, the Empress summoned no ministers. The palace held its breath beneath the pale shimmer of the twin moons. The wind touched the banners, but did not shake them. Kagetsu walked beside her, without needing to be led, down the inner stair, past the sealed chambers, through the gate of layered sigils. Few had ever been allowed this far, beneath the Kazakuten. They entered a circular room without corners, carved of black stone, veined with gold. No candles burned, no incense rose. In the center of the chamber, resting upon folded white silk, lay a single artifact, a saya, plain at first glance, iron dark and unmarked, but it pulsed gently, as if it were alive. This was Tsukuyomi no Hu, the sacred sheath of the moon god. Tsukika did not speak, she simply let go of his hand. Kagetsu stepped forward. He did not reach for it. He only knelt before it and waited. The scabbard stirred just once. A soft glow flickered beneath its surface, not red or blue, but something deeper, unspoken color. A ring of light bloomed faintly from the floor, a circle that wrapped around Kagetsu like a silent seal. And then it stilled. Tsukika, watching, finally allowed herself to breathe. "It knows you." The saya did not open, it did not speak, but the room felt changed. The divine relic had chosen its bearer without ceremony, without noise, without doubt. The moment the bond was sealed, the world paused. Across the skies of Tsuki no Kuni, clouds that had not moved in days began to swirl. The waters of sacred springs shimmered without wind. Mountains that had slumbered for centuries groaned, as if stirred by a memory. Lanterns flickered in shrines where no priest had yet entered. In the northern province, a mother wept in her sleep and did not know why. In the south, a hawk fell from the sky and never struck the earth. Every divine shrine felt it. And in the dark places of the land where the gods no longer walked, there too the silence was broken. The voice had not spoken, but the world had heard it. The crescent pavilion stood above the mist, built upon a spine of silver stone that arched out beyond the palace cliff. It was a place of silence where only moonlight and memory were welcome. Kenshin Tsukuda arrived without summons. He wore no crest, only a plain black coat that caught the wind and made no sound. His sword was sheathed, but not forgotten. He bowed at the edge of the pavilion. Tsukika was already there. She faced the east, her robes trailing, like the wings of a swan that had never landed. She did not turn when he stepped closer. "It happened then," Kenshin said. "Yes," Tsukika replied. "You've named him?" Kenshin asked. "Getsu," Tsukika replied. The name echoed for a moment between stone and wind. "You're certain?" Kenshin asked. "I'm never certain," she said softly. "I'm obedient to the gods." Kenshin's eyes narrowed. "Obedience is how the gods test us," he murmured. "They give us fate, then watch us try to shape it." A silence passed. "And what will you do with this fate?" Tsukihi asked. "I will watch," Kenshin said. "And when the time comes, I'll decide what to believe." At last, Tsukihi turned toward him. "Believe in him." Kenshin did not answer. He bowed again and left the wind to carry her words. The court gathered without call. They came not for spectacle, but because the sky had changed. A mist had hung over the royal corridors since the day of the storm, and though no rain had fallen, the air was thick with something ancient, an echo none dared name aloud. Tsukihi stood at the base of the moon dais in her formal robes. White and black silk flowed down the stairs like twin rivers. No crown adorned her head. She did not need one. Kagetsu stood beside her. He wore simple robes, not royal. His eyes did not seek the crowd. One hand rested lightly against the saya at his hip. Tsukuyomi no Hu. Though no one had taught him how to wear it. No one spoke his name. They only bowed and waited. Tsuka's voice did not rise. "This is the heir of my body and spirit," she said. "The bearer of 2 wings, 2 words, and 1 silence." She did not explain further. She did not need to. One by one, those who had gathered knelt, some with grace, some with hesitation, some with tears in their eyes. None refused. In the high court logbook, a scribe wrote for characters in perfect ink, Kagetsu Hinaka. The final moments of the ceremony were not marked by the usual celebrations. No banners waved, no music played. The court remained silent, and even the wind outside, the Kazakuten, seemed to hold its breath. Tsukihi watched Kagetsu standing still beside her. He was no longer a child in the eyes of the court, but neither was he fully embraced by the world. The relics had accepted him. The word of fate and the word of grace were written in his name, bound to his soul. Yet still, Kagetsu did not speak. He had not cried since the day of his birth. Tsukihi reached out and touched his shoulder. Her voice, barely a whisper, slid into the air. "What will you choose?" she asked. Kagetsu did not answer. He did not even look up. He only stood, his gaze fixed far beyond the court, far beyond the city. His mind seemed far away. But Tsukihi did not pull away. She let her hand rest, warm but firm, against his body. And for the first time since his birth, she felt the weight of what was to come. He would carry both the sun and the moon, just as the Empress, who herself bears both, stands as their living testament, and it was not her choice to make.